Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And everyone, hey, welcome into Computer America. There we go. See? We made some improvements here, folks. What can I say? It's going to be a really good show. So everyone, all right, now quiet down. There we go. All right, so now everyone, welcome into the show. It's going to be really, really fun, as today we have a full hour of computer and technology news, which is great because we haven't had a lot of time over the past week or even couple of weeks to really do computer and technology news. We, hey, it's the last day of the month, and it's been busy with the beginning of the month really dominated by CES and a lot of our correspondents coming on and talking about all the great things that were happening there. And by the way, behind the scenes, we are working on getting a lot of these companies here on the program. We're going to be doing a lot of reviews and articles and things like that up on our website at computeramerica.com. Definitely check that out when you get a chance. And in the meantime, hey, feel free to stop by our social media, whichever social media at Computer America. And then of course you can join us in the live video stream, which is also at twitch.tv/Computer America or right there on our homepage. A lot of ways to connect with the show, to keep up with what we're doing, and in the meantime, of course, hey, just have fun with us. It's going to be a really great show today, and for a long, long time to come. And by the way, just a special shout out. I don't know exactly which day in February it actually happened, because I wasn't there. I was actually born a month before, but Computer America will be entering its 28th year in syndication. That's right. 28th year of the show. It was syndicated sometime a little bit later, but of course it was conceived and first episode aired sometime in February 1991. That's right. So 28 years running. Very, very cool, and happy to continue to do it. Computer America has certainly changed over the last 28 years, but I think for the better. And as far as technology goes, you know that over 28 years in terms of technology, it's truly a feat. And if you don't change, then you become, people remember you fondly. But we don't want to be remembered fondly. We want to be here in the present, and of course receive all your hate mail. So everyone, there you go. Thank you. And yes, Craig, I did give you credit. By Computer America being started, Craig Crossman, for a long time, it was Craig Crossman's Computer America. And then we shortened it because we got tired of writing Craig's name. Well, everyone except Craig got tired of writing Craig's name. So it was Craig Crossman's Computer America, now simply Computer America. And hey, 28 years ago, he was ahead of his time. And hey, in some ways he continues to be so. So everyone, maybe one last let's see what do we have here? All right, no, we already did the sound effect. We're going to go ahead and move on with computer and technology news. So, everyone, welcome into the Computer America show. Why don't we go ahead, get started? Like I said, full show, Computer America. Real quick, if you missed yesterday's show, we definitely encourage you to go back and check it out. Yesterday, we had on the show... It was a correspondent, and I am totally shooting myself in the foot here by not remembering his name. It was, oh my God, if you head on over to Computer America, like you should, it was our cybersecurity expert. All right, we're going to act like this didn't happen and head on over to computeramerica.com and Scott Schober before it even loaded. So Scott Schober, he joined us here on, Scott Schober, there we go. Joined us here on the air today, or yesterday. It was a very fun show, and definitely go check that out. Now, with that being said, computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. I found the button. So for our first story that we are going to do today, I think we're going to cover this one because it probably has a lot to say besides what the actual story is. And this is an article from Ars Technica. I think it's very... Need coffee? Yes, I do. I think everyone does. Coffee is very good for you, folks. Don't believe all the hype. It's drink more coffee. But this story here, this is from Ars Technica and San Francisco. Often on the bleeding edge of a lot of different social issues, and one of them, actually a lot of them, deal with technology and how technology is used in our lives. And San Francisco seems to be fighting what is probably a losing battle, and this has to do with the use of facial recognition. At this point, I think most people are very aware of it. If you have flown on a plane, you know that there are actually programs that you can opt into to use facial recognition, where you let them scan your face, and instead of scanning your boarding pass or your driver's license or any kind of ID, they just scan your face. You walk on through with your boarding pass, and you are off to the races. We've seen this technology, potentially being used in sporting events, sporting arenas. Of course, like I said, traveling, city streets, they're using it more and more. And I guess the issue that this one tries to raise is the use of facial recognition as it is concerned with law enforcement. And hey, there's no doubt that using it, being able to tell anyone's ID, criminal background, who that person is without even having to stop them, and you can see every single person or even pick people out of a crowd. That's a very powerful law enforcement tool. But is it too powerful? And does it have to go with the idea of, the process of actually identifying someone and, searching their background, things like that? Does it go a step too far? Now, obviously, if you are places like China has already rolled out facial recognition for the masses. There was even a story about a year ago where China was able to pick, I think, about 7 criminals out of like 100,000 people at a music concert or a festival or something like that, and they were able to pick just a handful of people out of 100,000 people. It's to say that it doesn't work is kind of fooling yourself, and admittedly it doesn't always work. It's a system that is very easy to have false positives. But it's to the point where law enforcement is seriously looking at this and saying, we need this. And that's where San Francisco come in this article, asking, where the lawmakers of San Francisco are asking, or actually saying, our cops should be banned from using facial recognition. And this all has to do with, what we were just talking about. So the article says, according to a new bill unveiled Tuesday and first reported by the San Francisco Examiner and The Verge, the city would also impose a new preemptive, quote, surveillance technology policy for city agencies that want to acquire new gear that could impact privacy. And such a requirement would put San Francisco in line with its neighboring cities of Oakland and Berkeley. So this is catching up to some of its neighbors, but obviously California and these kinds of metropolitan areas are much further along because hey, there's no way around it. They have the tax money to implement this kind of technology as opposed to Poughkeepsie. No offense to anyone who may be in Poughkeepsie, but when you have that kind of money laying around in California, you start to look at what you can actually do with it. So they have a quote here from Lee Hepner, who is a legislative aide to, obviously one of the legislators, and he said that, quote, "Our intent is to catch people's attention and have a broader conversation as to where the moral precipice is for technology after which you've gone too far, and this is this is a harm to our way of life, a harm to our democracy, and a harm to marginalized communities. There is a salient interest in facial recognition too. It creeps people out." So that may seem hyperbolic, obviously saying that this is a threat to our way of life and our democracy. I have heard those same lines in things like Independence Day, where the main character in the movie is saying that these aliens are here to destroy our very existence. And while the language may be very colorful, I think that the point he's making can be referred to you can point to, again, the things happening in China where the people who are really being forced into the facial recognition program, it's not just criminals. It's not just it's not just like an opt-in society. And although they are expanding it to millions of people in the coming years, I think they said that they're hoping that by 2020 the entire population of China will be in this system. But they started. And here's the important part. They started with the marginalized communities within China, those who were the wrong religion, those who were the wrong political beliefs, those who were part of the wrong ethnic group. The people who they saw as dissidents within their society were the first ones to be put into a system so that they could be identified anywhere that they move within China. They're, of course, banned from moving outside of China. And they can be, kind of questioned if they happen to be in places that the Chinese government feels they should not be. So for them to kind of raise, for at least here in America, thankfully, we have the right to kind of raise these questions before they're implemented. And we're going to say, is this an okay thing to do? So they said that the legislative aide also said that the Board of Supervisors still does not have a full inventory of what surveillance technology both agencies have. And this is something that I also wanted to, kind of touch on, which is we have seen a lot of technology kind of come to us after the fact. The fact that the National Surveillance Agency, or the NSA, which I'll probably look up, the National Security Agency, Surveillance Agency. Yeah, there you go. Since the NSA was able to kind of was able to do what the NSA was able to do, and we didn't hear about it until Edward Snowden or any of these other stories that come out, the NSA had the ability to surveil the American population way before we ever had a conversation about, is that okay? The technology comes and then the legislation comes after, because technology definitely evolves at a quicker pace. So I'm glad that legislators are finally trying to get ahead of it, although I will say that law enforcement, they have ways around this, and this is the problem that I have. So you can ban law enforcement from doing this. But we've seen with other agencies, such as the NSA, that even if you say you are not allowed to surveil, the American population, you still get situations where they will hire contractors, set up entire places, and they will do these things without telling anyone, and then they'll push it off on the contractors, say, hey, this agency isn't surveilling Americans, this contractor is, and the contractor is the one who is, kind of doing, and of course the contractor is reporting directly to the agency, so it's kind of a workaround, but it still happens. So let's get a little further into the article, and then we'll talk about, kind of why this might just be a futile gesture. But let's see. So the article also mentions that facial recognition, while it is very powerful, like I said, it does have false positives, and more often, or at least for African Americans, facial recognition on African Americans returns more false positives, i.e., you are going to be harassed more, or you are going to be harassing minorities more than you would, white people. They also said that if the training data is heavily skewed toward white men, the resulting recognizer may be great at identifying other white men, but useless at recognizing anyone outside that particular demographic. Seen that before. That's not unusual. So they said that the department does not comment on proposed legislation. We do not have any real-time video cameras connected to the facial recognition system and do not plan to in the future. So, and let's see. So let's see. So the last part of the article here, according to the law, says that given that San Francisco is the sole city in California that is also a county, it has 2 law enforcement agencies. And they explain that San Francisco is exploring whether under state law, the Board of Supervisors has the power to restrict the sheriff's procurement, saying that, hey, the sheriff's office could do this, whereas the police department wouldn't be allowed to, but it's essentially the same police force. Yeah, so, and so the bill is being proposed 30 days. Now, my point here. Right off the top of my head, I know that Amazon, yes, the one that you buy paper towels from and everything else, Amazon is working on their own facial recognition system. They are doing it with, let's see, they have like the Amazon Stop and Go or whatever the heck the no employee little kiosk booth are that identify your face, connect it to an account, connect it to your credit or debit card. Excuse me. And then you just kind of walk in, pick up an item, and walk out, and the item is automatically charged to your card. That kind of facial recognition system, they've been working very hard on it, and we know for a fact that they have been working with government contracts, or they have received government contracts to utilize that same technology that they're working on so that law enforcement can use it. Even if San Francisco, in either the police force or the sheriff's department or whatever, even if they say, all right, you are not allowed to have facial recognition systems in the city, to protect people's privacy, they can still go to, or, the city contractors or even the police force themselves can contract out to, let's say, Amazon to put up cameras, street cameras, whatever, and Amazon could be the one doing facial recognition. And whenever a crime happens, or maybe even in real time, thanks to artificial intelligence, the video can then be sent or even demanded by law enforcement or subpoenaed by law enforcement. And yeah, technically law enforcement doesn't have it, but they have access to facial recognition systems. That's a problem. What does legislation really do if it doesn't stop the actual act from happening? So I think this legislation, it's very important to have the conversation, but at the same time, there needs to be much more expansive language in what they're saying, so that it's not just, hey, the police department can't have facial recognition. It needs to go much further. It needs to be much higher, heck, even all the way up to the Supreme Court, whatever, or, of course, the House or whatever legislative body would be best suited to create very all-encompassing laws against facial recognition. Because if you try to piecemeal it out saying that this state-run agency or that police force or whatever can't do it, there's going to be ways around it. So very cool of San Francisco to, again, raise the issue, but it's not going to be enough. Even if they pass this, even if they say, hey, this is now the law in this city, I think even in that city, it's not going to matter. So there you have it. So there's that one. Very interesting study or story. facial recognition is not going away, and probably within the next couple of years, it's going to be so accurate that, and of course with surveillance cameras, video cameras, security cameras being 1080p by default or even higher, the picture of cameras are getting better, which means that the technology itself by default is getting better. So it's going to keep happening. It's good to have this conversation before you end up like China, and it can certainly happen. Don't think it can't. Okay. There's that story. Why don't we go ahead and turn our attention to, okay, we have this one here. Quick reminder, not going to actually go into the story itself, but suffice to say, Google Plus, you may notice it's already missing from a lot of different websites. If you frequent any website, and this is kind of my bellwether on whether or not they're actually being productive with their social media. Go to their social media icons, like let's say Engadget here, where we're pulling this article from, although we probably won't be reading the article. Example up here, top right, you see Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, search bar, or down here in the article, you can share it on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. If you want to see if a company or a website or a service is actually keeping up with the times, see if they still have a Google Plus icon. Because just like the story is saying, Google Plus as a service will be shutting down completely on April 2nd. So it's the end of January, February, March, April. There you go. So April 2nd. So you have about 2 months, 60 days to get anything off of Google Plus that you want to save. Obviously, some people have videos or posts or friends that they only connect through on Google, although not many of you actually use it. But if you do have any kind of, anything saved on Google Plus servers, it's very easy to download all of that. They have a single file that you can prepare and download. But if you don't do that before April 2nd, then you are going to be out of luck. Definitely check that out. April 2nd, new date. I just don't want people getting caught off guard, because the original date was, I think, in August of this year. It was going to be shut down, but because of the second security threat that they found, they bumped the date up even closer. So April 2nd, mark your calendars. I do like the fact that they had to do April 2nd, because I'm sure if they said April 1st is the date of which we are shutting it down, maybe people would have thought, oh, April Fools, haha, Google Plus is still up. Nope, April 2nd, going down. So just a quick reminder on that front. Okay, this was a story, this next one, that I wanted to cover yesterday with Scott Jober, but instead, we really didn't get time. I think we mentioned it briefly, but I wanted to, of course, bring it up to everyone. And this is something that I think a lot of you out there will go, well, duh, but it's nice to put it into numbers. Robocallers, you know them, you pick up, they say, hey, have you tried this new medical device? Do you need, just yesterday, I think we were sitting around and we got a call from a medical device salesman for like a knee brace. Even though everyone in this household has very sturdy knees. We are a knee strong family. And yeah, that's just one of the many kinds of calls that you can receive, either from travel agencies or medical devices or prescription drugs or whatever. Robocallers blasted Americans, which I think is an appropriate term, with 26.3 billion with a B spam calls last year. That's right. It's pretty crazy. And they said that robocalls were up about 46% from 2017. So 2017, 2018, when text messaging, when instant messaging, when social media, things like Snapchat became all the rage, you think that phone calls would, kind of die down because, hey, who the heck is using their phone as a phone anymore? No, it's a digital portal to your messaging apps. Well, looks like the only people who are really stressing those lines are, of course, the spam callers. And again, this is more just to kind of put it into numbers and really say that, hey, for everyone out there who doesn't pick up the phone because you don't recognize the number, especially, and this is how it is for me, especially if it comes from the same area code or the same, first kind of three numbers, I never pick those up anymore because they are always spam calls. Now, they said that if you were bombarded by spam calls and texts last year, you probably weren't alone. A new report spotted by the Washington Post reveals that Americans received 26.3 billion robocalls last year. And they said that the spam monitoring service Hiya has been analyzing calls and found that many people are just simply not picking up calls anymore, which is the right way to do it. I know there are, I think the older generations are having a harder time with this than the younger generation. Maybe people more my age or even younger, and especially teenagers and, kind of preteens, they don't pick up the phone. You can text them all day long, but you do not call them out of the blue because they just won't pick up. But I think the older generation, they had phones in their household for decades upon decades, and it's inconceivable not to be rude and not pick up the phone. So, hey, maybe it's a polite thing to do nowadays because, with 26.3 billion robocalls, you are probably playing it safe. They said that robocallers are increasingly masking their spam with genuine-looking local numbers, making it more difficult to detect them. And thankfully, there are a variety of apps. And by the way, we'll include this article in the show notes, and they link to a couple of apps that you can use and download for iOS and Android that will actually, I'm sure that there's a master list out there of phone numbers not to trust, but thanks to spoofing, you can't even trust any kind of one list. But these apps make and curate their own list, and they actually detect if someone is spoofing their number. So you can see if a number is trying to hide who they actually are. And if they are, odds are you don't want to talk to them. Let's see. So carriers are also under increased pressure from the FCC to tackle nuisance robocalls. The regulator wants carriers to adopt shake and stir protocol, which is a framework that validates phone calls as they pass through networks and allows consumers to ensure that the call is genuine. I think it's completely right for the FCC to pressure the phone companies, the ones that we give so much leeway to, the AT&T, Verizon, those who we have said that you are running the nation's, carrier service. They should be the one to implement these protocols, and there are ways to fight it. It's just, it's going to be a little bit of a hassle. So T-Mobile is planning to activate the Shake and Stir call authenticator, whereas AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint are all committing to enabling it on their networks, but no plans yet. They said that with some analysts predicting half of all phone calls being spam in 2019, the protections can't come soon enough. That's right, 1 out of every 2 phone calls, 1 out of every 2 phone calls is going to be a spam call. Pretty interesting. And at the same time, I'm sure, like you all know, just so not surprising. Okay, so let's see. Let me do something here real quick. And, yep, perfect. We'll do that right there. Okay, so for our next story, and we are going to have to come back to this because we're about to run into the break. But let's see. There's been a lot of Facebook hate. And I'm not going to say unjustifiably. Facebook is, they are doing things that are very suspicious. And whereas maybe a decade ago, people would say, well, hey, what can they really do with data? Or even 5 years ago, they say, well, of course they do. People are just now coming to the realization that the amount of data that they hand over to places such as Facebook is actually a real problem. It's surprising. And Facebook, knowing how much money that this is worth, is not going to give up without a fight. So they're collecting data in ways that you may not know. And this is where all the other articles come in about Facebook hate and things like that. And we're not going to cover those, but I did want to at least have this one article here that shows how Facebook is actually collecting your data. And you may not know this. You may not know all the different ways. So, hey, it's knowledge is key. Knowledge is power. So, again, we're going to start this article, and then after the break, we'll come back and we'll continue on with it. So, they said that Facebook, as you know, Facebook has a habit of stealthily grabbing, there's music, customer data to improve its own products and services, and then apologizing when the world finds out. So this article, this is from The Next Web. They've compiled a great list here that really shows all the different ways, including the one that happened just yesterday with Facebook actually paying teenagers, and adults as well, and paying teenagers and adults to actually snoop on their devices for $20. Yes, they were paying for the right to snoop. That should give you an idea just how valuable this data is. So everyone, the music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. More Computer America right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show, 32 minutes past the hour, and eventually we will fix that commercial at the end. But in the meantime, everyone, welcome back to the show. If you miss any part of our conversation so far, we have been doing computer and technology news. You can check out the podcast, which is today's show in its entirety, rebroadcast. And by the way, for everyone out there, we will certainly let you know when it happens, such as last Thursday when we had Marcel Gagnier, our all Linux expert, here on the program. That particular show ran over by about 15 minutes. So if you wanted to catch the last part of that program, you had to be listening to either the live video, everyone on radio was unfortunately, we kind of had to be cut off there, but everyone, watching the video or everyone who listens to the podcast got the full and extended hour and 15-minute conversation. So just a heads up, that may be happening more in the future. And, because we certainly encourage that if any guest wants to stay on longer or discuss anything that's relevant, then we definitely encourage that. So, okay. So again, check out the podcast, wherever podcasts are heard, punch in Computer America, you'll be good to go. Or check out our new streaming page. We recently revamped it. We have all the players there. If we want to make sure that wherever you happen to listen to podcasts, Computer America can be right there with you. Now, so now with all that being said, let's go ahead, continue on with this article. And these are the different ways that Facebook has kind of taken a turn to spy on you. And yeah, here we go. So let's see, here we go. This again from the Next Web, Ivan Mehta, and talking about the handy list of ways that Facebook has a spying on you. So the first one was, of course, the one that really came to light yesterday, and the reason that the Facebook certificates were pulled from the Apple Store, and this had to do with the fact that they were paying teens $20 for data about how they use their phone. And to be clear, anyone who installed the Facebook Research app, so all the news organizations keep saying paying teens $20 for data. Facebook alleges that only about 5% of the people who downloaded Facebook Research were teenagers. That leaves about 95%, anywhere from 18 to 35. That was, those are the people who were really using the service. So yeah, they were paying teens, but they were also paying a lot of other people. Don't think that they weren't. But essentially, they said that it tracked private messages and social media apps. And be very clear about that, not just its own, let's say, Facebook Messenger app, but any social media app. Any private messages in any social media app were being tracked by Facebook for those who installed this. This is essentially spyware, just to be clear. They also said chats from an instant messaging app that includes photos and videos, emails, web searches, web browsing activity, and even ongoing location information. That service tracked everything. Yeah. They said that Facebook opted for a non-App Store route and asked testers to use alternative app testing platforms such as BetaBound, UTest, and Applause. The program asked users to install the Facebook Research app from a specific URL instead of the App Store, and then granted extensive permissions to monitor activity on their phones. And that, again, is why Apple itself had to pull it from iOS and not just the Apple Store, but Apple iOS revoked Apple or Facebook's research program. Very important. So so that was the first one. The next one on this list, and again, this is a full list on the different ways that Facebook collects data that you may not know about, because be very clear. If you go to facebook.com and you post pictures, or you friend people, or you message people on facebook.com, I hope all of you know that is definitely being tracked. These are the ways that you may not know you're being tracked. So there you go. So this next one has to do with VPNs. If you don't know what a virtual private network is, we've been over this. Listen to the show more. But a virtual private network allows you to essentially connect to a different server than you would normally go to. And you get to mask, quote unquote, your web traffic. People who are very adamant about using a VPN, they are people who are looking to keep themselves anonymous, secure, safe. Maybe they'll be connecting to something that they don't want tracked. And there are perfectly legal reasons to do this, including connecting to work servers. A lot of them, if you work from home, they have you connect through a VPN. Now, why I emphasize security is because Facebook, they acquired a VPN called Onavo, O-N-A-V-O, in 2013. And since then, the company has even tried to promote the service through the Protect tab in the primary Facebook app. That's right. If you connect through Facebook's owned and ran VPN, they were tracking all the data going through their servers thanks to the VPN. It's the exact opposite of what everyone should expect from a VPN. So if you use Onavo, then yeah. Although they did say that the Apple reportedly found that the app gathered user data about the sites people visited and the apps that they used, and as a result, it booted Onavo out of the App Store for violating its privacy policies. Do you see a pattern here? Apple is taking a very hardline stance against Facebook trying to collect all this personal information about you. Now, the next one, sponsored stories, saying that Facebook introduced a concept called sponsored stories that took advantage of users' content like check-ins, photos, and comments to create ads for companies like Coca-Cola and Starbucks. Strangely enough, there was no option to opt out. In April 2011, a bunch of people sued Facebook for using their information without their consent. 2 years later, the company had to cough up about $9 million in a class action lawsuit. And of course, $9 billion distributed among 600,000 people. Let's see, so if my math is not completely horrible, that's just under $15 a person. Yeah, I'm sure Facebook is really smarting after that one. They said it also had to shut down the sponsored stories program. Let's see, so there's two more. There's two more ways that they could do this, and then we'll wrap up and move to something else because, I don't want to just scare you for the whole hour. I also want to find cool tech stories. But for now, we continue with the scaring. And Android texts and calls saying that following the Cambridge Analytica scandal that broke last year, I know it seems like forever ago, Facebook changed its privacy policy and allowed customers to download the data collected from them from the social media network. By the way, if anyone out there has never done that, I just did so last week. I should have done it way long ago. But Facebook has a very long memory. I found out that I first created an account and my first message received was from my friend back in 2011, I want to say, was when I first created a Facebook account. So, I resisted for about 2 years and then I relented. So, or was it 2009? Maybe it was 2009. And then I didn't really start to use it again until 2011. But I digress. It's very interesting. Go download your data. You'll see exactly what Facebook has on you, and it is extensive. They said that in its defense, the company said that it asked customers for permission for call logs and SMS. That seems to be the recurring theme. Whether or not it's the full-blown spyware that Facebook research was, whether or not it's Facebook stories didn't have it, but maybe it's the VPN, which had it in their terms of service that no one reads, or this particular one saying that, they asked for permission. And of course, if you're downloading one of these services, you're going to hit yes to anything that pops up on the screen and gets you into using the service faster. Whether or not that's a decent legal defense, saying, well, of course they agreed. They hit yes after 0.2 seconds of displaying the information. How could they not agree to everything I just said? Whether or not that's a good defense, who knows? But that's what Facebook keeps going back to. Let's see. So there's that one, and then the last way were shadow profiles and extensive data gathering. And this is also with the data leak of Cambridge Analytica. And this is something that even if you don't have Facebook, if you've deleted Facebook, if you use any services that Facebook has made partnerships with, but you don't have a Facebook account and you think, wow, I'm safe. Facebook has nothing on me. I am not associated with Facebook whatsoever. It doesn't matter. Facebook has this handy feature that they will assign you shadow profile 834324839, and they will say, hey, you, that shadow profile, you're the one who keeps going to Pinterest. You're the one who keeps reading these stories from the Washington Post. You are the one who is browsing these kinds of things. They will assign certain behaviors and certain markers to the same shadow profile. So if you log in from the same IP address, if you use the same phone number, if you have the same circle of friends, they will eventually build up a profile on you just as if you were using the service, but instead you are shadow profile and they don't, where I'm sure they probably could get a name from you. It doesn't exactly have your name, but those shadow profiles are still bundled up and packaged and sold to advertisers and to make them money and to quote unquote better improve their services. So, and by the way, folks, if you didn't know this is also, I'm sure, alluded to in the article. Facebook wasn't and continues to be they're not just collecting data, they purchase data. Facebook is one of the biggest purchasers of data. They don't just, kind of absorb it and sell it. They also go to other services that collect your data, buy it from them, and then they package that with what they already own and say, hey, we have the complete makeup of the internet user base because we purchased it. We're going to sell it again for an even higher markup. Despite what anyone says, Facebook and their way of handling data, while seemingly maniacal and very intrusive, is actually very, very clever. They have become the multi-billion-dollar company that they are because they do this better than anyone else. So the article wraps up, but we're going to wrap up here and switch topics here. So this was an article that we kind of picked out of the crowd. There were a lot of Facebook hate articles out there, but I just wanted one to, really drive the point home. There you go. And why don't we go ahead and swap up stories here? Okay, so we spent all that time talking about Facebook, and I think this article from The Verge also has to be stated. Apple blocks Google, the other data company. Apple blocks Google from running its internal iOS apps. So just like yesterday with Apple and Facebook, now it's Apple and Google with the same dispute, saying that Apple has now shut down Google's ability to distribute its internal iOS apps following a similar shutdown that was issued to Facebook earlier this week. A person familiar with the situation tells The Verge that early versions of Google Maps, Hangouts, Gmail, and other pre-release beta apps have stopped working today, alongside employee-only apps like GBus app for transportation and Google's internal cafe app. That's right. Apple took away Google's ability to buy coffee in the morning at a Google facility. Man, that is a rough way to start the day. Now, Apple's move to block Google's developer certificate just a day after Google disabled its Screenwise Meter app following press coverage. So Google's private app was designed to monitor how people use their iPhones, similar to Facebook's research app, and Google's app also relied on Apple's enterprise program, which enables the distribution of internal apps within a company. So, hey, for the same, for the same reason, and Apple did warn that any developer using their enterprise certificates to distribute apps to consumers will have their certificates revoked. And so therefore, Apple is clearly sticking to its rules and applying them equally to Facebook, Google, and likely many other companies that are going to be caught breaking Apple's rules. This is the benefit of having Apple, of having a closely tied down, clamped down, walled garden of an operating system. I don't think Android can do this. Android is kind of like the wild, wild west, where if you have an app, you can put it up, and don't get me wrong, there's like 50% of all apps or 40% of all apps within the Google Play Store for Android are like bloatware, spyware, crapware. They're just not good services. And then here we have Apple, who has a very low number of those in their Apple ecosystem. And then on top of that, they're taking the bigger applications to task and saying, hey, you're not using these certificates like we warned you that you were only allowed to. You are using your enterprise certificates to monitor everyday consumers. You lost your privileges. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be negotiations between Apple and Facebook and Google to reinstate these because, hey, they're actually pretty important for businesses. But it's this is just news following that Facebook isn't the only one to do this. Google was doing it as well. And like the article said, many, many others. There you have it. Okay, there's that one. There's a story. And again, that one coming to us from The Verge. We're going to throw a link to that in the show notes after the program will be up at computeramerica.com. Definitely recommend you check out the show notes. It will have everything in one place, including the video. Why don't we switch stories over to Intel. They're friends of the show, been on the show a number of times, longtime sponsors, currently not sponsored, full disclosure. Intel, call me. But Intel, they looks like they had a bit of a mix-up, bit of a shake-up, and now it's starting to shake out. Intel gives interim CEO Robert Swan the full-time job. That's right. Yay! He passed his initial, I guess, kind of trial of valor. Intel has announced that the company's interim CEO now has the job on a full-time basis, saying that Robert Bob Swan has been appointed the lead chipmaker. Has been appointed to the lead chipmaker as its seventh CEO, where Swan took over an initially temporary basis 7 months ago, but was rubber stamped by the board today. In a letter sent to all employees, Swan said that he was honored and humbled. I don't know. He looks like a pretty confident guy. To be named its permanent leader. Well, as permanent as that could be. But I digress. Swan was previously Intel's CFO, so Chief Financial Officer, and stepped into the top job after predecessor Brian Kranick. Kranick suddenly left his position. Kranick's departure was due to the disclosure of a past sensual relationship with an Intel employee, violating the company's non-fraternization policy. Yeah, so the Me Too movement claimed that one as well. Folks, don't fraternize where you work. So they said that the new CEO outlined a number of causes that he will champion under his new official leadership at Intel. He's saying that our execution must improve, and it will. Our customers are counting on us. Intel, I think, needs a new CEO. And again, this guy's had the job for the past 8 months, so we'll see if anything really changes. But they definitely need a new CEO to look at what they're doing and try to shake up some, really in their research department, because I think their marketing department is pretty darn good. I think that their manufacturing is pretty darn good. I think it's their research, what's new, what's different, what's coming down the line. That needs a real shakeup, and hopefully, Robert Swan can, be that for them. And they said that, and of course, to dig up the company's recent manufacturing woes, that would be moving the chip from the 14 to the 10 to the 7, but a combination of security updates and inability to produce enough chips forced Swan to publicly admit that Intel was struggling to make chips its customers wanted. That too. Oh yeah, the whole WannaCry, or not the WannaCry, it's like the Ghost something. It was the thing that led people to spy on the processes being run and actually pull data from all Intel chips up until the most recent. So yeah, that was a big one. I completely forgot about that already. They said that in addition, Swan wants to continue Intel's transition from a PC company to one that is data-centric and to be bold rather than defensive. See how that goes. That may be a hint that Swan is dissatisfied at how much ground Intel has lost in the mobile and in data centers. Data is certainly, and I have to agree with him there, just random radio host to Intel CEO. Data is where the money's at. If you can make the initial investment like Amazon has done, like a lot of other companies have done, if you can be, like Amazon, like Microsoft, like IBM, if you can make the initial investment and create these data servers and data processing applications and platforms, then data itself is, once you have it collected, it's free. It's not very expensive to continue to run it. And the data that you are then processing is infinitely more valuable than the continued upkeep to store that data. I think he's very right to go after that kind of market. It's going to be the thing that drives the future of technology. And hey, we'll see if Intel can actually live up to its promises. And that would be to continue to innovate in the processor market, to continue to be a chip manufacturer of the highest order, and of course to kind of blaze a new trail into the data servers and data world. So hey, maybe we'll throw an invite out to Intel. Intel was last on, I want to say in early November, I think. So it's been about 3 months. Hey, we could probably have a different part of the company on, but Intel was last on, I think, in November to talk about their VR initiatives. There's a lot to talk about there, so maybe we'll extend an invitation to Intel. But there you have it. Okay, time for just one more story, and I actually wouldn't mind talking about this one. So, okay. Kanye West. It's a name that comes up, unfortunately, not enough here on the show. He's quite the character. Yeah, so you're wondering, Kanye West, what does he have to do with technology? Not a lot, thankfully. But what he does do with technology is this whole service called Tidal. You may have heard about it because Beyonce and Kanye West are about the only artists that they were able to earn, although there may be more. I'm not very up to date with Tidal, but Tidal, they had exclusivity on Kanye West and Beyonce's first run albums. And for a couple of weeks there, it was the only place you could listen to it, download it, hear it, whatever. Now, it seemed kind of weird. It seemed like they were pulling on their star power to start up a new service that clearly no one wanted. When you have things like Spotify and Pandora and so many other outlets to completely sequester your new music and pulling on your millions of fans to turn your own service into a success, that's either leveraging what your popularity, or that's just being kind of not a team player. Now, here we go. This article from Engadget: Kanye West settles lawsuit over the Life of Pablo Tidal exclusivity. And they said that the details of the agreement weren't disclosed, but all claims have been dismissed. So, if you are wondering, yes, whatever legal trouble you get into, if you have enough money, hey, they'll go away. Kanye West has settled a lawsuit with fan Justin Baker-Rett, who sued the artist over claims that Kanye West's album, The Life of Pablo, would be available exclusively through Tidal. And the term of the settlement were not disclosed, but all charges filed in the case have been dismissed, including a potential class action lawsuit that will no longer move forward. So that's out of his hair. The Life of Pablo first dropped on February 14, 2016, and West said that the album would be available only on Tidal. The day after its initial release, the artist took to Twitter to say that my album will never, never, never be on Apple, and it will never be for sale. You can only get it on Tidal. That drove many people, including the person who sued, to sign up for Tidal, either grabbing a free trial or ponying up for $10 monthly subscription fee to hear the album. And despite the rapper's claims, The Life of Pablo made its way to Spotify and Apple Music just a few weeks later. There you go. Leaving fans stuck with an unwanted subscription to Tidal. Because if and you can see there, making claims that this will never be X, and then it ends up being X, hey, that's a problem. Kanye West defended the release of The Life of Pablo on other streaming services by claiming that because he made changes to the album and added a song after its release, it was actually a different record entirely. I don't know about that. With the settlement between West and Baker-Rett, the artist for now will avoid a class action case that would have allowed anyone talked into Tidal just to hear Life of Pablo to join the suit. West is no stranger to controversy, and we're not going to go, further into it. But hey, Beyonce did kind of the same thing. So I guess the problem here was that he said this is only going to be available through Tidal, and then it ended up being available everywhere. Okay, there you go. Just want to talk about that. And Tidal, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like a service that no one asked for, but at the same time, if you don't promote a way for other people to come into the market, then you're stuck with, let's say, things like Steam, where you have one service that does 90% of the digital distribution of games, which is not good for the market. We, of course, are capitalist, and when you have one one monopoly on an entire industry, that's a problem. So I'm not saying that Tidal needs to go away because we have Spotify, but it's just hard when everyone is satisfied with the offerings you already have, and maybe these kinds of business tactics aren't the best way to do it. Who knows? But Kanye West, good luck. Okay, everyone, the music in the background means that we're just about done, and let's see, so some of the other stories that we didn't get to include the earnings report from LG and Samsung. They, spoiler alert, they both dropped, and both of them lost money. See what happens. Also, didn't get a chance to talk about Facebook again, and another controversy that they were dealing with, and a lot more. So everyone, thank you for joining us here on Computer America. It was a lot of fun, and if you would be so kind, join us again tomorrow, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and we'll have a whole new show planned for you. So until then, have a great day. Thank you, and catch you next time. Bye, everyone.